Matt Hancock had suddenly impinged on my consciousness, and there were two things. First of all, he was a really irritating little irk. And secondly, I couldn't draw him.
You couldn't draw Matt Hancock?
Sometimes
Is that frustrating?
Well, somebody new comes along, and you've actually got to work out the template, and sometimes it takes you quite a while, because you have to work out a template by which they are immediately recognisable to the reader, and it looks more like them than they do. And it's quite a sophisticated... I don't quite understand how it works, but I know when it does work, and I couldn't do it. And so I just issued a challenge board one afternoon on Twitter. I said, let's have a Draw Matt Hancock challenge. And to my amazement, hundreds of people entered it. I mean, and they really enjoyed it. And a guy called Colin Campbell, who writes under the name of Nothink, the pen name of Nothink, he's a Northern Irish cartoonist, and he just produced this image of Matt Hancock, which was extraordinary. It caught his eyes just on the point of bursting into tears because he suddenly realised he's still Matt Hancock, which was that expression Matt Hancock always has. He's about to burst into tears because he still realises he's still Matt Hancock. And I've been stealing that template for drawing Matt Hancock ever since.
So one of the challenges you issued, and I think these are some of the funniest examples, is how to do Michael Gove, isn't it?
I mean, Michael Gove's an interesting character because when I first... Again, this is a case of stealing off people, because when he first rose to prominence in 2010, and I knew him, actually, and I hadn't actually tried to draw him that much, but again, it wasn't quite right. And I only realised what the defining thing about him is. And always when you're doing a caricature, it's about three different features in the face.
Oh, really? Really?
I'm fascinated by the science behind
and like a nose, an eye, and an ear, or something.
And they all come together in a certain sort of formula.
Yeah.
And there's a brilliant cartoonist and comic book artist and land rights activist, as he is now, called Nick Hayes, who was doing some stuff in The Guardian, because for 6 weeks in The Guardian, they ran these 6 previously unpublished cartoonists over the summer. And he drew Michael Gove and got to the Goveness of Gove, which is the fact that Gove does not have binocular vision. He is basically not a human. He's not even a primate.
Yes,
he's like a rabbit.
He's got an invertebrate.
He's got eyes on the side of his
head.
Yeah, he's got a spine, but he's got eyes on the side of his head.
So he's a hunted rather than a hunter.
So the thing is, you've got to move his eyes as far apart as possible and still make it believable he's got a skull.
Right, yes.
And so that was how I started drawing, so by nicking from Nick. And we're now going to see 2 extraordinary interpretations of
These are for members of the public.
This is by Davy Jones, who's a cartoonist for Viz, and does comic books. And he did this, and this was absolutely extraordinary. He just did it with his lunch one day.
It's his lunch.
It's his lunch.
It's his lunch. What was he having for lunch? I
He was
salami.
Salami, carrots...
taco.
Taco, a bit of cucumber. And...
So satire, you can actually use food for satire?
You can do anything. You can use objet trouvé. You can do the stuff of nightmares, as we'll see in a minute.
Can you use your own body, I think?
Well, I mean, the thing is, everybody said that's the winner until Mike Stocko, who's a brilliant gag cartoonist for Private Eye, produced this, which he said came to him in a dream. And it's his own torso, photoshopped. And I think that's, without question, the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life.
I wouldn't call it a dream. It came to him in a nightmare. It certainly is the stuff of my nightmares. Is there a long tradition of British satire? Well, what's good about it?
Well, there is a uniquely wonderful tradition of British satire, which is longer than any other country on earth, because it's unbroken by actually locking up satirists and the state murdering them.
Only because of Rupert Murdoch protecting it.
Yeah, well, I mean... and it comes from one of the most beautiful moments in British history, which everybody's forgotten about, which was in 1695, when they, by accident, possibly, forgot to include time in the parliamentary timetable to renew the Royal Licensing Act, which was basically state censorship. And if you published something the state didn't like, they could have you hung, drawn and quartered. A lesser punishment was to have your ears sheared off by the public executioner on a pillory. So suddenly it wasn't there anymore. And it was so onerous, it had to be renewed every 2 years. And they then spent 20 years trying to get it back on the statute book, and they couldn't, because people rather liked this proto-freedom of expression and freedom of the press. So they brought in the Stamp Act to tax newspapers rather than just kill the editors. And this meant you had this mushrooming of satire, because amongst the things people could freely express for the first time without endangering themselves was the fact that it's a universal truth we all acknowledge that we are led by people who are no better than us, and in many cases often worse. And actually the way we make our lives bearable is by laughing at them. Just like the way we make our lives bearable as we navigate our way through our lives to our certain deaths, and we have to deal with the fact we shit every day, is to laugh at shit and laugh at death. And, you know, we don't laugh at the good stuff, we laugh at the bad stuff. And that's how we control it. That's how we take possession of it.
Do you think that Matt Hancock perhaps has capitalised on that with his I'm a Celebrity appearance? He's satirised himself. And
Yeah,
you can't,
absolutely.
That's it, isn't it? He's turned himself into the cartoon and you go, well, that's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is...
That's what Boris did to us.
Well, yeah. Well, yes, I mean...
Boris Johnson, not
point,
Boris.
yes, I mean, the point about Boris Johnson is that he, along with Trump, who's a much better comedian than Johnson. Johnson is a terrible, terrible...
Terrible timing, same jokes.
Same jokes. I mean, he lands a punchline like the Hindenburg. I mean, he's just terrible. He's just terrible. But he recognised early on that because he is a middle-rank functioning psychopath, and he is about to break down any minute, so he wants people to laugh with him. But what he cannot stand is people laughing at him.
Let's look at this the famous one of carving up the world.
Plum pudding in danger.
And we had a brief discussion about this. There's a picture of, if you can see it in a moment, is it Pitt?
It's Pitt and Napoleon Bonaparte.
And Napoleon Bonaparte carving up the world. Now, there it is. Great picture. I remember seeing that. And it's kind of empire building, isn't it? The French.
Well, it's first of all, it's the perfect visual metaphor for the geopolitical struggles.
Yes.
That's the first thing about it. The second thing is it's a kind of type specimen for a political cartoon, because it has all the ingredients of a political cartoon. You take recognisable people, and through caricature, they turn into the marionettes of the cartoonist, who sets them up in a satirical narrative of their own devising. The third thing is that it actually takes the medium to a heightened level, because you could take that idea of Pitt and Bonaparte fighting over a plum pudding, and you could actually paint it on the wall of a palace, and it could be 30 feet wide, and it would have angels, and it would have men in togas, and it would have pillars, and it would be all about statesmanship and grandeur. This is about 10 inches by 6 inches.
And it's quite beautiful.
It's quite beautiful, yeah. But it's small.
Yeah.
So it's bringing them down to size, but it's about a food fight. And food fights are funny because food fights are about shit, basically. And shit is funny. The point about satire is that it's assassination without the blood. The point is, absolutely, it's dark, primitive magic. My purpose is to destroy these people by drawing them with stupid noses so they daren't show themselves in public again.
You don't want to kill them?
I don't want to kill them. I just want them to shut up and leave me alone. But they will then, of course, counter that, as in every joke has a sort of counterploy to diffuse it, by sort of pretending it's all just jolly good fun.
We're going to issue a challenge, aren't we? We're going to challenge to our millions of viewers.
Well, we are, because I've been doing these now for 3 years, these draw challenges, and they have a kind of organic life of their own, because all these brilliant artists out there who I'd otherwise would never have discovered. I mean, genuinely great people who should be being published in the New Yorker on a weekly basis, and I'm hoping one day they will be. But they just nag me and say, when are we going to have another one? But this is a chance. I suddenly realised when you said to me just before we came on air, who should we do? And I hadn't even thought about it. And I thought, who's the worst person in this country at the moment? Who is actually the worst person? The whiniest, biggest, bed-wetting snowflake this country has ever seen? Obviously, it is the future Lord Dacre.
Lord Paul Dacre, Editor-in-Chief of the Mail, which is full of whinging and suing people.
Whinging, whining, bed-wetting old clown who gets in a fit of the vapours if somebody tells him a foreigner lives 15 miles away. I mean, for God's sake, grow up, you fool. So I want people watching this programme and watching it on the wonderful interweb to draw Lord Dacre's investiture.
His investiture in the House of Lords, which seems to have been delayed somewhat. There are allegations from various celebrities of nefarious activities of the Mail under his editorship, but that remains to be denied and challenged by the Mail themselves. We can maybe get in ahead of the investiture. So this is a public issue from all three of us. We're asking all Byline TV viewers, millions of you, to, probably best by Twitter, but you can contact us also, info@byline.tv. Come up with, or Martin Rowson on Twitter.
Well, I will now, afterwards, I will put this challenge up formally on Twitter.
Byline TV challenge.
Hashtag draw
Dacre. Draw Dacre.
Draw Dacre. We will have prizes, I understand.
Yeah, prizes, lots of prizes.
We will have fun. And what I would say is if you think you can't draw, if you think you can't paint, if you think you haven't got an artistic bone,
Find some food.
That's absolutely
Use your
untrue.
body.
Yeah, it's absolutely untrue. As the great art critic Ruskin said, drawing isn't about drawing is about looking. And you can do anything. An awful lot of people who've been entering the draw challenges hitherto have sent tree stumps that look like Oliver Dowden, things like that.
There are a lot of tree stumps that look like that.
And there's objet trouvé, and you can do it in all sorts of different ways, but just let yourselves go. It will be wonderful. It is the redemptive power of art to sneer and laugh at Paul Dacre, and I can think of nobody who deserves it more.